I'm going to
Welcome,
go
everybody.
over.
This is the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley. Every week, we bring you the stories of people who are making the world better around them. They do this locally, globally, even digitally. As part of the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley, our group is online and asynchronous. The way we see it, there are loads of people out there with a heart for service who are also crazy busy and need something really, really flexible in order to be part of a fun and cool international service group. If that's interesting to you, just check us out at our website, rotary.cool. That's the shortcut that'll get you there. And man, are we proud of that. Now, part of what we do is we find folks who've got all kinds of interesting perspectives on how to make communities better and what kinds of things might be useful to those who are improving their work, improving their organizations, improving their communities in all sorts of different ways. And in that vein, we have with us today Dr. Sherrie Tennessee. And Dr. Tennessee is joining us from Las Vegas. Very cool. And the message that she has got is about trust and trust management. And I'm excited for us to be able to share that story. If you want to read her full bio, feel free to go to the page where you launched this video or this podcast, and the details will be right there for you to check out. And we hope that you will also share the message that you get as a part of this as well. So, Dr. Tennessee, go ahead. The mic is yours. Welcome to the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley.
Rushton, thank you so much for having me. Hello, Silicon Valley, uh, Sierra Club. I'm so excited to be here. As was said, we are going to talk about trust management through communication. And the goal really is strengthening teams and elevating experiences. A little bit about me, I come from the hospitality world. So we have to think about our employees and their experience and how that impacts the guest. Thus, the topic of trust. So, why does matter? Well, one of the most important things when you're thinking about internally is employee engagement and retention. And we know that this is a major issue right now in the workplace. Operational consistency, which is required, service quality, customer loyalty, organizational performance, overall big picture. Understanding that high trust organizations outperform low trust organizations. So, when it comes to communication, thinking about this foundation. So, a breakdown in communication leads to confusion increased, accountability erodes, and the service quality declines. When communication is strong, the team aligns, decisions move faster, and experiences are improved overall for everyone. So we're going to talk about internal trust first. So understanding that external trust cannot exceed internal communication quality. Most workplaces failures stem from poor communications, which causes employees to disengage when expectations are unclear. Trust is not assumed, it is built through communication. And so I have created this concept of clear, right? We want clear communication. So when it comes to internal communication, we want to make sure that there is clarity, listening, empathy, accountability, and relatability. And I practice this as an instructor where I want to make sure the information that I'm giving is clear. So, breaking down clear a little bit more. So, clarity removes guesswork and ambiguity, listening, acknowledging input, not just collecting or listening to respond. Empathy really explains the reason behind the decision. Accountability is do what you say you will do. And then reliability is consistency over time. And a nice visual effect of the clear as well, understanding that we learn in a lot of different ways. So, hearing it as well as seeing it. So, the impact of internal trust, higher productivity, which we're all going for, improves the bottom line and ROI, creates greater engagement, reduces turnover, which a lot of organizations are dealing with, and creates stronger collaboration. So, really thinking about how to be able to incorporate these in because understanding that missed messages create confusion, frustration, and error. While when you use clear tactics, it aligns expectations, concerns are acknowledged, and follow through is consistent, which is key. So, as we wrap up this idea of care and this internal communication, what customers feel is what the employees experience. So if employees are unhappy, that's going to be conveyed over to your clientele, whoever that may be. Internal confusion leads to inconsistent services, conflicting messages, and reduced confidence. The opposite of that is making sure that we are clear in our internal communication. Next, as we move to external communication, we want to think about care, consistency, alignment, responsiveness, and again, empathy. We really do have to bring this empathy into the conversations that we are having. So, explain consistency, predictable experiences, understanding that the consumer wants to make sure every time they come, they are able to have the same consistent experience. And if that could be amplified or elevated, even better. Alignment is going to be that internal clarity, which supports delivery. We want to look at responsiveness so that timely acknowledgement builds confidence. We want them to keep coming back because they trust us and they know what they're going to get every single time. And again, this empathy goes back to human centered communication. I know a lot of us are talking to robots, but we want to make sure that we're putting that human element into it and that human center. So, understanding that external trust reality, customers leave when communication feels dismissive or slow. Customers remain loyal when communication is respectful and timeful. So, thinking about service recovery, a poor response is going to be delayed, defensive, and inconsistent. And people do not want that. They're going to leave. When you start bringing in this concept of care, the response is going to be clear messaging, fast follow up, and an empathetic tone. Trust is preserved or restored. So, again, thinking about how we create trust in communication, it's going to be clear. Internal communication leads to care in external communication, and the results are sustainable trust. Now, one of the key aspects of that is we have to be authentic in what we are doing. Trust accelerates when communication is authentic, when we are sincere. So, what does that authenticity mean? Words align with actions, values, and behaviors match. Leaders communicate honestly and consistently, and teams experience psychological safety. You can think about Maslow's hierarchy. And that first tier is that psychological safety and moving up from there. So, thinking about the takeaways, clarity without authenticity feels scripted and fake. Empathy without authenticity feels performative. And trust really requires both structure and sincerity, which is where the authenticity comes in. Understanding that authentic leaders really are able to move the ship and get the goals that are needed. Um, Authentic leaders acknowledge challenges directly and address them. They communicate decisions transparently. They admit mistakes when necessary and invite dialogue and not just compliance. And I will tell you, having a Gen Z, I have to be an authentic leader in my house first and then outside in the world, because this is what is expected from my son, is this authentic leadership and communication. Authenticity builds credibility, credibility strengthens trust, and trust improves performance. It's all connected. Authenticity is not oversharing. It is responsible transparency aligned with organizational values. We're having issues, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing that, and being able to explain and convey that information. So, how do you turn authenticity into action? First, we talked about internally with the clear. So, explain the why behind any changes, follow through on comments, and then create a space for real feedback. We have to be open to feedback as leaders. We're not dictators, we are leaders, and we have to welcome that conversation and that feedback. We are not all knowing. Externally, when we look at authenticity and that care, responses with genuine concern, personalized communication, and avoiding scripted and robotic messaging. We don't want to have it feel like it was created by AI, that it really is sincere and comes from the heart. Understanding the results of these actions, authenticity will transform services from a transaction to a relationship, and relational services create loyalty. So, what leaders must model? understanding you must have clear expectation, consistent communication, follow through, respectful responses, and trust is built through behavior and not just your intention. So, activity. So, understanding, doing a self reflection. Once you get through this video and you're looking at your organization and yourself, and how do you put this into practice? Think about where does the communication breakdown happen internally? Is it how it's being conveyed? Does it need to be face to face versus electronic? Can it be both? And then also questioning, where do teams need greater clarity or consistency? And really thinking about that and even getting feedback from the team. Where do they think that things are disconnected? And that, again, it goes back to that willingness to have feedback from your teams. When you think about the experience map and the customer experience, you want to identify key customer or guest touch points and where can care strengthen that experience. Where can you add those different aspects into it to be able to enhance the overall experience the guest is having? I think there's a great quote. Guests who love their experience will come back and bring a friend, and that's what we want. So focusing on how to create that trust and that amazing experience so they want to come back again and again and again. So I have created a little bit of a trust roadmap for you to think about and really analyze where you are and how to be able to improve so you can assess your communication gaps. You can strengthen the internal clarity, again, thinking about those aspects of authenticity, how the team and the messaging align, evaluating the customer experience, and that can be the internal customer and the external customer, so your staff and your clients, and then reinforce through leadership. So again, that openness to get that feedback, to have those experiences is so key. So how does this apply in application? So in hospitality, thinking about service consistency and guest confidence. In a general business, thinking about team alignment and client relationships. In education, because I am a professor, thinking about clarity, credibility, and engagement. So, a few key takeaways: reminder that trust is built through clear communication internally and care driven experiences externally. When communication is intentional, trust becomes a competitive advantage. So, with that, you want to make sure that you are thinking about care. So, consistent alignment, responsiveness, and empathy, and connect. You want to be able, oh, that is not connect, it is clarity. I apologize for that. Wrong image. We're going to move on, but thank you so much. It happens. And I welcome any questions that we may have from the audience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sherrie. This is great stuff. I'm going
Yeah.
to introduce the group that we've got. I'll leave this image on the screen just a little bit longer.
Okay.
But what I'd like to do is to let everyone know how we handle Q&A. The group that we get on any given recording is going to be a group that knows they can put a question in the chat. That's a signal to me to be the one to read it, or they can put in the chat, I have a question, and I'll say, go ahead and unmute and ask it as we get to that particular topic. So with that, let's stop sharing and we will kind of dive into this. So the first question, Sherrie, is about where these ideas are being used, what kinds of settings, where you've seen especially strong results as a matter of using these ideas. How would you say that this is being used in a sector by sector space?
So for me, I do reside in about three different sectors. So I am in hospitality. So seeing that communication, that trust, that openness, because we do have a different generation coming into the workplace, and they are very big on empathy, accountability, authenticity, and trust. And so really gearing and understanding their mindset in a business platform. So I teach classes for Nevada Hotel and Lodging. I have a lot of younger people coming into hospitality and just trying to give them the tools to be successful. At the same time, I am an educator. I am a professor in a hospitality department. So again, I think about how can I improve my communication to be able to get the results that I need as an educator, that they're doing the work, that they understand that they're submitting quality work. So I pull out my checklist when I am creating the modules, when I'm doing the overview and the content, really checking those boxes and making sure that I am aligning with the practice of clear and care. So from a business perspective, from an education perspective, from a parenting perspective, I have a 16-year-old who is big, and just being able to make sure that you understand that I'm clear in my expectations, that it doesn't change over time, that the goals are clear and set, and supporting you along the way and explaining why these rules and policies are in place. And I'm also a business owner too. So yeah.
You're not bored, that's for sure. All right.
I I am never bored. There is always something to do, and you don't want to see what's inside this head here. It's a lot going on. So
Well, you brought
thank
up
you,
you brought
Nina.
up a topic that I think is a really good one for this subject, and that is the topic of AI, right? And I
Hmm.
want to put two things in front of you. You can take them in either order you wish.
Okay.
Victoria asks about how customers, face AIs, like so they'll end up contacting a company and end up interacting with an AI, and what does that mean for the customer? What does it mean for the company? What might it mean if things improve? Whatever. So that's one issue. The second issue is that for a lot of people, you mentioned how it's important not to be dismissive, for example. Um,
Absolutely.
Sometimes they just don't know. They don't know that the language they choose or the tone they have or the facial expressions that are part of how they communicate come across as dismissive. And one quite constructive use I've seen of AI is people saying, here's a message I want to send to this person for this reason. Can you
Make it
soften it,
nice.
right? Or whatever. Can you speak to both of those use cases of AI?
I can, and I will start with the latter. Um, it's funny that you would bring up AI because I actually teach AI classes in Nevada Hotel and Lodging. And so I think when it comes to understanding the body language and how we carry ourselves, I think that's something that has to be brought to people's attention. I remember when I first started teaching, I had someone come and observe, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, you're great. The only thing I docked you for is you didn't say the student's names, right?" And that planted such a seed in me that now I'm like, oh, I'm going to call everybody's name, right? So I think sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And I will say, as an educator, and I teach professional development, that is something I talk about is like, what is your body language? And then understanding that culturally, body language is different. I worked in the Caribbean. You don't make eye contact in the Caribbean because grandma will make your head roll down the street, right? But in the US, one of my favorite movies, Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, I forget the name of it, but he says, open your eyes. I want to make sure you can hear me, not see me, but hear me, right? Um, as good as it, no, it's not as good as it get. It'll come. Um, but so really thinking and you might have to even just pull them to the side and say, hey, and it might people are very sensitive today. So you might have to pull everyone aside in a group, have a meeting, and just do a little overview about body mechanics, our facial expressions, our tone. I think when you address it, it brings it into the forefront of the individual because they may not know. I am fully aware I do not have a poker face, right? My face will show you everything that I am feeling. And so I have this internal voice that's like, don't do that face, Sherrie. Smile. Or how are you facing the world? So sometimes I think in order to address that, people don't know. So giving them that insight is so powerful. Now, your other question was, how do organizations prepare AI to interact with guests? And we're seeing that quite a bit. We have a hotel here in Las Vegas that has no front desk staff. It's called the Autonomous Hotel, and it is exactly that. You check in with your phone, you book online. There literally is a robot concierge that you can go over and speak to. Is that experience for everyone? No. It definitely is a more niche audience, but it is, and understanding that AI is not going away. It can be customized. The more that you use it, the more it will develop a more human voice and aspect of it. So that's going to go into training and really understanding who is your audience and are they ready to deal with that. There was a great report I just saw on LinkedIn yesterday, and the percentage of people using AI, again, 80 or not, 20% are they're using chatbots. There was a smaller percentage, like 2% were paying the fees, and then there was something like 0.1% were actually masters of AI and like creating things and generating. I fall in that smallest percentage. I have been dating ChatGPT. We're going to have our third anniversary in November. So I have fully embraced it. I love it. I am enjoying it. Claude, Gemini, Canva, Chat PDF that reads PDFs. I know I'm an anomaly, but again, when I teach the classes and I talk about AI, it's not like riding your bike, right? Like you can't do it every 6 months because AI is changing every week and advancing and newing and different things. So you have to be consistent. And we talked about consistency in the presentation. The same is going to be true with your interactions with AI. The more consistent you are, the more you use it, the more you give feedback, the more it will develop your voice and your tone. So that's how I see it interacting. It's not going to be a full rollout. What I talk about is using AI to help you build your SOPs, using AI to help with training, help with scheduling, help with guest comments and feedback. Is there a certain issue that maybe you're missing that AI can catch and pick up on that you can develop a response to? So for right now, I think a lot of organizations are using the AI internally and behind the scenes to help. But as we continue to integrate it into our lives, you are going to be talking a lot more to an AI robot that will be able to assist you.
Cool, Sherrie. So I want to zero in on one piece of that.
Sure.
You talked about the idea of dating AI for the last 3 years. What I assume you mean, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're using it heavily because it's such a fascinating tool to think about communication. And as you do that, what are some things that have surprised you about how AI has taught you new things about how we choose to communicate?
You have to be very specific. And I mean, I know that as an educator and as a business owner, but really honing in, and then you have to give feedback. So I'll have it create something in its capacity, and then I'm going to go zhuzh it up a little bit, and then I'll put it back in there and say, please note, here was the final draft of what I used. Note what changes have been made, add that to your memory, and apply it moving forward. And it's able to do that for the most part. It has days where it cannot. But I think really being consistent in the request, consistent in the feedback, the prompt engineering is so important of being specific in what you want, even if that's a paragraph. And I do a lot of voice recording. So I'll say, okay, as a senior social media marketing expert, I need you to create me a LinkedIn post that is informative, engaging, friendly, concise, and professional, accurate. I need it to have high SEO keywords, one hashtag. It needs to be related to the image that's attached and include these following keywords. That turns into a paragraph, right? But it gets me closer to what I want than I need you to create a LinkedIn post and no kind of premise around it. So I really think of AI as an in-house assistant. So I am still respectful of it. I don't send a separate thank you because we know that that generates energy. So I'll say, great work. Okay, here's the next thing that I need. But really being specific with it, and even you can be as specific as possible, and it will still generate something that's absolutely insane. I've been working on marketing and the generational cohorts, and I had to give it some stern feedback like that's trash. I don't know where you got that from. You missed the mark completely. Here's the data again. do it again. And so, that feedback, that interaction, I think is really key when we talk about communication, and being able to be specific to get the results that you want. And I think when you practice it in AI, it will follow you through the rest of your life.
Well, that gives me the chance to kind of pull several threads together as we finish up the recording time, and I'm excited to do so. I read recently that one person had achieved far better results on prompts by including at the end uh, ask clarifying questions in order
Mm-hmm,
to specify that will blah 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 whatever it might be. And that idea that it becomes more of a conversation actually has this analog to what we do face to face. That
mm-hmm.
that idea that many people are sensitive, like you mentioned, but B, there is a comparative advantage by being someone who can be kind of thick-skinned and just listen and just think, however this person is getting this in front of me, there may be something important in there for me to hear. And I
Absolutely.
get the impression from what you do is that you're helping people better understand that in some creative way, right? That developing those comparative advantages really comes down to perhaps being a bit humble about how you approach your work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're not, life will humble you, or your employees will, or your customers. So it's nice to kind of come to that place that I can be open to learning and feedback, that and being humble, that listening, open to feedback is going to help create that sense of trust, and that people will continue. They see who you are, how you're showing up, how you support them and engage with them, and then they want to be around you, they want to be loyal to you. So when we talk about this concept of trust management, it's multi-tiered and multi-layered, but I agree so much, Rushton. It really does come with humility and being open to that feedback and listening to what is said. And that was the whole point of Clear and Care and our conversation today. So thank you so much for joining. It was truly an honor to be here and share this insight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll pass along to everyone who is listening to this podcast as a recording, who is watching this video as a recording. Thank you so much for taking your time. We know that there are many different ways you can choose to spend your time, and that you would seek the kind of inspiration that we get regularly through the speakers that we are so blessed to have as a part of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. We hope that you're finding kind of that same energizing element, and that you're sharing these stories with others. I'd like to thank our members who are part of this particular recording as well. Here in the Bay Area, Scola, good to see you. And in Hungary, Victoria, good to see you as always. All right. My name's Rushton. I'm based in San Jose. And as we always like to do at the end of our recordings, we hand it back to the speaker for the final word. So, Sherrie, what would you like people to be thinking about as they get to the end of this recording?
We've talked about so much, but really thinking about how you're communicating. Is it effective? Is it really geared to your audience? I always say if you're not speaking to your audience, then you're speaking to the wall, and that doesn't benefit anyone. So, really thinking about your communication, and are you building trust or are you eroding it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheree. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.